What happened to your school bad boy girl? Lots of meth. She posts photos of her newborn boy and calls him her sexy little man. Like it was straight out of a movie. He died in a car crash the night of graduation. Not sure how this happened, but there were 3 bad boys on our football team. All players and all very good looking. They cussed, drank, smoked all the time, and were constantly getting laid, or at least telling everyone they were. Right around senior year college they each went through some change and are all now born again Christians. No partying, less cussing, and none of them talk about women in an objectifying way. It's great but kinda unnerving in a way. Alcoholic, missing all his teeth, usually in between jobs in either lawn service or pest control. Has custody of his kids cause he's the good parent. She's dead. OD right out of high school. She was a bit of a goth. Smoked in front of the school. Smoked pot behind the gym. Graduated valedictorian. Went to Stanford on a full ride scholarship. My biggest bully in middle high school ended up going to prison. Funny thing though, my mom worked in that prison, and they got to know each other. When he got out, he found me and apologized. He later got a job at a local Taco Bell, and whenever I came in he would always add a bunch of free stuff to my order. I haven't seen him in almost 2 decades, but I know he became a dad. I actually hope he's doing well. Edit. Just looked him up. Had 3 kids, a wife, and is a contractor now. I'm glad he turned it around. Edit 2. Wow. Just checked in on this a day later, and my comment blew up. Glad this made some days. Got a girl pregnant, abused, killed the baby, and he's still in prison 12 plus years. He's not the best younger brother, but what can ya do? School bad boy. When I was there was my older brother, drug dealer, played in a metal band, general smartass and arsehole. He flunked out of college after 2 semesters and has been waiting tables since then. He turns 30 this year, and the girl he's dating now is the first one who's stayed with him for more than 6 months. She's super cool, actually, but like 5 years younger than him. They have a couple dogs, smoke a lot of weed, and play a lot of D&D. Last I heard from him, he was escalating a feud with his neighbor by putting a plate and a half worth of loose, cooked spaghetti in her mailbox. Shot and killed 2 fellow students behind a Publix across the road, so now he's in prison. Edit. For people wondering where, it was in Roswell, GA. He got arrested for spray painting a wall and happy ending. He went back to school and got into uni. Edit. No, the painting did not have a happy ending. His story did. I guess I was bad boy in high school. 2 of the girls I dated called me their bad boy phase years later. I thought I was so bad too because I didn't give a shit about anything and broke every rule I thought was stupid. Then I got sent to a school filled with kids way worse than me. My graduating class was around 20, I think. I maintained the same attitude about everything but somehow graduated. I was considered a good kid in that school because I did half my schoolwork and I wasn't shooting up or partying every weekend. Anyway, now I'm closing in on 30. I have a good job, $65k a year, quite a bit in the atoll city I live in, and just bought my dream car. I'm currently sitting on my couch, typing this in an awkward position because my cat decided to go to sleep right where my arm would go. Sorry if that was poorly written. I just did shots with my grandmother over Skype for her birthday. Edit. Lots of questions. The car is 2019 Honda Civic Type R. I'm an operations manager at a plant. My grandma is amazing and I have many more stories, but I fear I may have doxed myself and will be deleting my account when I get home. Thank you. We had a couple, myself included. I think there was about 8 in total. I'm all that's left. The rest are dead or incarcerated. Which one? One became a serial killer. My wife dated him before all that. One's doing life for a contract killing. 3 are dead. They were bangers. 2 are in mental wards. I was a hood banger back in the late 80s early 90s. Grew up in New Mexico. There were very few of us that became productive members of society. I got caught for banned. Judge gave me a choice, jail or Job Corps. I took the latter. Met my wife shortly after, and she taught me what it means to be a real man. Father. Human being. He's an eggplant farmer. Literally. Edit. All the questions of how one would be a figurative eggplant farmer. I have no clue. What I do know is if you asked me what I do for work and I said I'm an eggplant farmer, your first thought would probably not be that my field is aubergine husbandry. He wasn't the quintessential bad boy but did drugs. Drank. Got arrested for drugs. Total partier. Always nice to me and we were friendly, but that whole scene just wasn't my thing. That was 1981 and up until 2013 wondered whatever happened to him. Found out my daughter's new boyfriend was his son. I was very relieved to find out that shortly after high school he realized he was going nowhere fast. Cleaned himself up and started a successful business. Thrilled to say that my husband and I share 2 beautiful grandchildren with he and his wife, and I couldn't be more happy about it. Thanks a lot to the kind Redditor that gave me my first award ever. You Stephens too. Thanks for all the very nice replies. A rumor went round school that he was messing around with a 13-year-old at 16. She fell pregnant. He got done for statutory rape. Her parents pressed charges and he went to juvenile detention. He married her anyway once she was legally able to get married, although I believe they divorced shortly after, and he became a grandfather at 31. Presumably because the daughter they had also fell pregnant at a really young age. Went to prison for selling drugs to minors about a year after he left our school. The one that comes to mind forced his ex at gunpoint into his car and then drove to another state. Cops eventually caught up with them and then he shot himself in the car. I feel really bad for the girl. He had kids early. Still lives in his parents' basement. I know y'all are not going to believe this one, but the bad boy super jacked dude. Debro. Blonde blue eyes jock that got all the women. Well, he's doing gay porn at a professional level these days. So there's that. He's doing fine though. The bad girl that everyone was in love with, not me at the time though, she turned out to be a very sweet person with an abusive dad and that made her be so rebellious and edgy back in high school. Well, she's my ex-wife now. So there's that. She's doing fine though. I was the bad girl. I was very academically gifted, but had a bad home life. So I smoked cigarettes and weed, drank a fair bit of vodka. Basically did everything I could to rebel against authority. I once threw a jar of blood on the principal. Animal blood. Long story. Ended up getting kicked out. Spent 2 years on the streets with a bad drug habit and surviving through 6 work. Had a massive OD, turned my life around. Worked in transport logistics. Now at 30 I'm at university. Studying computer science engineering. I'll be 34 when I graduate. I'm fairly certain one of the prominent and popular bad girls at my school ended up as a prostitute. A few years after graduation she kept posting about how people should come get massages at this sketchy spa she worked at downtown. She also kept posting about her modeling career, but all the photos were behind a pretty steep paywall. So I'm pretty sure that was porn. Anyway, I read in the news one day that this spa she worked at was raided by the cops and the owner was arrested for running a prostitution ring. She suddenly stopped posting after that. It's funny. In some aspect just about every classmate of mine was a bad kid. Many went on to college or have kids, but many others have struggled. Out of 55, 12 have died. We graduated high school 6 years ago. My school's druggy burnout. Slain UPS hijacking suspect was a unarmed and desperate violent felon. 2 bad boys, both brothers, a few years apart. The younger one started some sort of legitimate business, think Roy from The Office, and seems to be doing extremely well. The oldest is literally homeless and constantly begging for money on Facebook. It's really sad. Drugs and brain damage. In middle school there were these twins who were both really cool. They had a band. One did drums while the other sang and played guitar. Skated. Occasionally got in trouble with the law but for really small things. A few months ago I was taking a bus when I saw them get on. They were clearly homeless and one of them kept whining to the other that he needed his fix. He passed out and his brother half-heartedly puked into his hand. Eventually the bus driver saw one of them. I kid you not. stripped down to his boxers to get some non-puke stained clothes on and told them to get the duck off the bus. Told my folks about seeing the twins. Apparently they've been in and out of jail for years. Other guy I did karate with in middle and high school and was a sweet guy who had a bit of a temper and was a bit of a troublemaker. I saw him on the streets. We were both in our mid-20s but he looked like he was pushing 40. He talked slow. One side of his face drooped even when he smiled and he walked with a limp. I later found out that he was an on and off heroin addict and had been in enough fights that he was permanently brain damaged. Jay is dead 10 years now, and nobody thought he'd make it as far as he did. Bad boy is now manning the front desk of the local dry cleaner. Bad girl got married, got divorced and is desperately trying to get married again but everyone is taking a bite, but nobody is buying. Last I heard of him he was totaling his dad's car and was kind of a running joke around town. Not my school, but one close by. I married her. She's an amazing mother to our kids. Arrested for attempted rape. My school's bad boy girl never got traction, but the arsehole popular guy is now overweight and balding, and recently hit on my at the gym. I was an awkward band kid, and grew into a very pretty lady. Duck you. Chad. For real. His name is Chad. I had a few of them. Some of them are really crazy but one of them seems to have calmed down a bit and I hope he's doing well in life because he kind of deserves some good luck emo. 2 died of opioid overdoses and the third died in a front-end collision while doing donuts in a roundabout. Apparently, just looking at Facebook, he's now a nerdy hipster who frequently donates to various charities. In high school, he was a scene metal kid who had a penchant for beating up his many girlfriends. Who the duck knows? I deliberately haven't spoken to anyone that I went to school with since. He got a girlfriend. Girlfriend dumped him because he got into too much trouble. Then started a gang that said no to relationships until they get to high school. I think it's hilarious. Well, the school slut is now a nurse in Austin. TX. She did well for herself. As for the bad boy, he is still in law school at the University of Virginia. I just realized that I'm nowhere near as successful as them and I feel sad now. Girl was way out of my league, asked her out, have me a laughing no. Last I heard she got 5 kids from different baby daddies. I grew up, no idea what happened to my male counterpart. One bad boy died of a drug overdose in his 20s, leaving a 4-year-old son behind. Yet another bad boy moved to the USA, raped at least one 14-year-old girl, and has been in prison there for years. One bad boy and one bad girl became pregnant in grade 12 and married the weekend after graduation. They are still together and are fine, upstanding citizens from everything I've heard. Happy ending. He's a DJ in a nightclub and is a good friend of mine. I used to do his homework and he'd buy me lunch. I managed to get him in my study group so he didn't bully us, but he'd spend most of his time drunk or with girls or getting into fights. He is a good friend of mine as well as the other nerds of the group now. We were in a reunion celebrating 10 years of our graduation like 2 years ago and he invited us to the nightclub where he works and I hated the music but everyone seemed to like it. He got divorced last year though. Not nice. But he's got his it together so we all cheer him up. They beat a guy to death over some dart game money and are in prison now. He threatened to bomb the school, then posted multiple videos on YouTube of him ducking the family dog and he kinda disappeared once the police were involved, which was quick. I'm sure he went to a mental wellness facility and I hope he got better because earlier that year he tried starting a fire in the school cafeteria. The dude needed a lot of help, but this was about 10 years ago. Not quite the bad boy. Actually everyone thought he was goody two shoes. Turns out he had some of the worst grades in school, was a serial arsonist, and when he was caught attempted suicide. Haven't heard from him since but he made the news with one of his fires. One of them became an accountant. I met him on a train to the city a few years after school. Well dressed, quiet, and serious. We had a few criminals and did heads and for the most part they turned out the way you'd imagine. But in terms of bad boys, there was one guy who you could say fit the mold. He never followed the rules. always butt heads with authority, smoked weed every morning before school, got a full tattoo sleeve by 16, but for the most part was kinda well liked by his peers. He ended up dropping out of school, getting kicked out of his parents' house and selling weed while being homeless. After that he got heavily involved in a local church and did a complete 180 that shocked everyone. We're talking complete sobriety, mellow attitude, and getting his ged. He continued to be involved in the church. At one point tried going down to Mexico to help build a church for a small village. He ended up starting his own construction company which ended up going under, and when I last talked to him a few months ago he told me he was working as a project manager. We didn't really have that many bad boys and honestly they all turned out okay. This one group of girls though, holy duck. They all think they're the Kardashians and act like they're famous on Instagram, beautifully documenting their sugar-induced adventures. The latest thing that's happened with them is the one who I always thought was the most sensible of the group had a baby with some sketchy anti-establishment skater dude, and now they're all pushing out babies like the human race is going extinct to try and one-up each other. Some of them are on their 3rd or 4th kid. It's like they're having a who can give birth the most times before their legs fall off contest. At least being constantly pregnant has kept them away from the drugs for the most part, lol. He's dead. Was always a hothead. Not after spending 3 years in prison. Broken jaw. Shot multiple times etc. He was just bad news. I used to be best friends with the bad boys in grade school. Then we entered high school. We started drifting apart after being placed in different sections but all in the same grade. One is a registered nurse with a family of his own now. Married a doctor and they just had a baby. He's a frontliner for our city's regional hospital that cater to COVID-19 patients. Bless him. One became a dad too early. Got fat. Took his sweet time to graduate from college and he barely did graduate. But he's wiser now and we're happy he's on the right track. The other one was a drug addict when we entered college and last I heard he's still one. No one's seen him since 2016. I'm hoping he's okay. We had a couple of them where I lived. One found a girlfriend that rescued him from his bad habits. I knew her in passing. And he's really lucky to be dating her. The second dropped out of RedditJar college. Went through rehab. Got his life together. And he's, last I heard, back in school learning. The third was the cliche bad ending. Abandoned the other two. Got arrested a couple of times for drugs and petty theft. And I haven't heard of him since. That's me. IDK what I am up to, but every time I see someone I used to know they just look at me and feel bad. She dropped out of school to travel the world with her suspected pimp. She has since gotten her get and is now studying business at some university in Las Vegas. Went to private school, so our version of a bad girl was also the class president. But anyhow, on to the story. A few years ago I received a message from a friend with a newspaper article. This girl got arrested for running an underground 6-ring. She would find and lure in young teenager girls, drug them, and then her and her boyfriend would abuse the girls. They held parties where all this went down. Apparently they were part of a whole group of people. Then the two fled the country after they plead guilty. They were eventually found on a farm where they were working as farm hands. Now I can't find any stories to say what happened. But if I remember correctly, my friend told me she was deported. So this boy in my class would vape and smoke weed during lunch, and later I found out from his buddy he got put on house arrest. Doesn't end there though. He ran away and came to school. This idiot came to beat up this boy cause he didn't pay for his weed. 5 cops in a different uniform, not SWAT, came and tracked. They had medium guns on them. The boy down. He was found with a small pistol on him. There was once this kid in our school who seemed really cool and a real badass. He was the kid who would smoke a joint during school and he would carry pocket knives. He was a nice kid. Anyway, he got caught shoplifting birth control pills because he made a chick pregnant. Anyway, fast forward 15 years, he's homeless and a heroin addict. I only know because I saw him outside of Starbucks about a week ago. I'm doing quite well, thanks. I have a good career, a car that runs well, and a home to call my own. Our local bad girl is actually my neighbor. During her last 2 years of high school, both her parents passed away from vastly different illnesses. She shut herself away for a while after. Now she can't keep a job to support herself because she's still permanently trapped in that bad girl attitude from how much they spoiled her that she has to rely on her brother 2 states over to pay for her food and apartment. He is still trying to live as a musician, but in reality being sustained by his father, mother and living with them. She got pregnant with 17, did not finish school, had the baby, went back to school, and finished it. Her family sustains her and the baby since the father disappeared. She struggles with raising the kid, trying to go to parties and work, earning less than the cost for education food for the kid alone. They are both over 30 now. All this from social media. My best friend was the school bad girl. Dated guys in their 20s when she was in high school. Did drugs. Did not deal well with authority, etc. She's had her ups and downs, like getting arrested during her 3rd wedding. But now she's in law school in Hawaii. I didn't find out until well into high school it was me. I started going to private school freshman year and got ghosted by my friends. Had no idea why, but at a party in our town, I rarely went to parties. I saw one and asked what the deal was. Apparently, his mom called all of our friends' moms and told them I was a bad influence and I needed to be excluded from hanging out with them. So one mom cost me 95% of my childhood friends. So, I'm well, married, no kids, no plan on having kids, own a home, work in advertising, didn't finish college, but didn't need to. I stay fit, my wife is beautiful, we're healthy and happy. As for the friends, 2 dead from odds, 1 cashier at a liquor store who lives with his parents, 1 moved to Germany to be a European homeless person, 1 convicted of sexual assault, 1 pizza delivery driver addict, 1 just disappeared at around 17. I guess his father worked in the state government and when he was busted with drugs they just sent him away. No social media or contact with anyone. At one point I asked his sister and she just said she didn't want to talk about it. He could literally be dead and we'd never know. 1 was an internet pioneer, in that, before he was 20 he was facing federal trafficking charges for selling drugs online, and that about covers it. So it's clear to everyone I was the problem. My guess is he managed to scrape a life together and finally get that Ford F-150 with a gun rack and make just enough money to be hyper conservative and vote against any system that would actually be able to help him out of crushing debt and wage slave poverty. The group he was in got into a car crash killing one of them. He was the one driving but the oldest one took the blame. The poor girl almost was paralyzed at the waist down and still took the blame for him because he just got his license. They all have almost fully healed since then. It's been a year or so.